Joining us on the line right now is Audrey Hudson, an investigative reporter. She's done a lot of work around town, especially for the Washington Times. And Audrey had an interesting experience on August 6th of this year. Audrey, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Early in the morning, like at 4 o'clock in the morning
Middle
or so.
of the night, really.
Yeah. You get a knock on the door. Who's at the door?
Well, actually, my dog woke me up barking, and I looked out the window and saw that the house was surrounded and that men wearing full body armor were coming towards the house.
And what did you think at that moment?
I didn't know what to think. My husband leaves early in the morning for work. They caught him on the road, brought him back, and so he called me on the cell phone and said, the police are here, put the dog up, and open the door.
All right, so you do that, and in comes people in full body armor, and they start going through your house. What are they looking for? What kind of paperwork did they have?
Yeah, what
with
did the warrant actually say?
The warrant was a trivial charge of looking for a potato launcher.
What is a potato launcher?
It's a novelty item.
And is that illegal? You're not allowed to have
No, it's legal. It's perfectly legal.
So
is that the only thing that was on the piece of paper?
They said that the purpose of the warrant was to search for a potato launcher and its parts.
All right, so
that's what they had. That's the information.
That's what they got a judge to sign off on for a search warrant.
So they go through your house.
However, as they start going through there are two Homeland Security officials with them. One of the men asks me if I'm the same Audrey Hudson who wrote all of the air marshal stories for the Washington Times.
Oh, boy.
I said I was, and he said he identified himself as a former air marshal official. And he starts asking me, do you know so-and-so, or do you know so-and-so? And, of course, I said no, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. They searched the house. I did not know until September, over a month later, when they called me, that they had actually taken my notes.
All right, so
they pulled every file box out of my closet in my office. They went through everything. They took 5 files that contained my confidential notes on air marshal stories that I had done.
Oh my gosh! Now, who were these people?
The raid was led by the Maryland State Police.
Right.
And he also had 2 officials from Homeland Security with him.
Well, why do you think the Homeland Security people were there? This was
they never
a
explained
potato
that to
launcher.
us.
Yeah.
They never explained that to us. And the first thing they did was read us our Miranda rights and sign the paper. And I was trying to say as little as possible. However, we did get into an interesting discussion on what was going to happen on the new season of Walking Dead.
All right.
Well, okay, but hold on a minute. So you find out in September, when they give you a list of all the stuff they took from the house, that these documents were missing.
No, they called me September 10th and told me he said, this is the Homeland guy. He said, we have 5 files on the Federal Air Marshal Service. You can come pick them up. I said, why did you take these files? He said, well, I had to send them over to TSA to make sure it was legitimate for you to have them.
And you
these are my notes. These are handwritten and typed notes. So that's when I knew they were gone. And when I got them back and was able to look through them, that's when I realized that we needed to take some action.
So what do you think this was all about?
Well, we're not clear, but obviously one thing is clear, and that is they came in here. They took confidential files that are protected, by the way, under the Privacy Protection Act. I mean, the government has to have specific circumstances to look at a reporter's notes, and they did not have the authority for that. And to be honest with you, this isn't the first time they've launched a witch hunt in the Air Marshal Service. When I first broke stories that the agency had lied to Congress about the number of flights they were protecting, they launched an internal witch hunt then trying to ferret out my whistleblowers.
And our guest is Audrey Hudson. She's a freelance journalist. Most of her work has been with she was a former reporter for Washington Times. In fact, many of the stories that you're talking about here exposing issues with the Air Marshal Service, that happened while you were at the Washington Times, correct?
That's correct.
And you're currently a reporter with Newsmax and also the Colorado Observer. They claimed, and let's name names here, this guy's name is Miguel Bosch, right? This is the person who identified himself as a former Air Marshal official?
That's correct.
And what agency is he with now?
He is with the Coast Guard.
The Coast Guard. So why was the Coast Guard involved in this raid at your
Well,
house?
now they're saying it's because that's where my husband worked, but this has absolutely nothing to do with my husband. They invited, it looks to me like they invited themselves along with the raid. I mean, I don't know. I'm speculating on that.
And Audrey Hudson.
What I do know is that he identified himself to me as a former air marshal official, and they have also, according to the statements put out by Homeland, they confirmed that they were the ones who took the records.
Audrey Hudson, when you read some of the articles written about this escapade here, there's some mention that you did have some government documents. It wasn't just your notes, but any documents you had, you obtained through a Freedom of Information Act.
Exactly. I did have an Inspector General's report on the stories I had done. And not only was it obtained by the Freedom of Information Act, the letter from the agency releasing it to me was still attached to the file.
Oh, my God.
It was the first page. So there was no
doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt at all. And their other statement was that, well, some of the documents said for official use only. Well, every government document
has that, right?
Is for official use only. And even AP busted them on that. That's not classified.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions. This would seem on its face to be a violation of your rights to an unreasonable search and to not have an unreasonable search and seizure. It would seem to be a violation of your First Amendment rights as a reporter in that they didn't come in there looking for documents according to the documents they presented at the door. And the Washington Times is, we are told, getting ready to file a lawsuit. What can you tell us about that?
That's correct. In today's paper, on newsstands now, the Washington Times is going to pursue legal action against the government agencies.
Well, you're right there with James Rosen of Fox News.
Yes.
You're right there with the Associated Press.
Yes.
Except that the difference is in those particular cases, nobody came knocking on the door and took things from their houses.
Yeah.
that we know of.
It's frightening. Yeah, I mean, the whole experience is it's been gut-wrenching. It's really been frightening.
Audrey Hudson, can we hold you over for our next segment? We'd love to continue talking, but we got to break for traffic real fast.
Sure.
All right?
We are joined by Audrey Hudson, an investigative reporter, done a lot of work for the Washington Times. She's written some stories about the Air Marshal Service, about Homeland Security. Well, on August 6th, the Homeland Security and the Maryland the Maryland troopers arrived in full riot gear, entered her house ostensibly to look for what she calls a potato gun. But it was only recently she found out that they also lifted some documents, some reporter documents that she had used to prepare some of her reports for the Washington Times.
And the other part of this that I find, Brian, fascinating is that while standing around, this guy, Miguel Bosch, he turns to her and says, "Hey, are you that reporter that wrote those articles about the air marshals?" And then suddenly boxes of documents regarding that reportage gets confiscated. That's not a coincidence.
This is amazing. Well, so Audrey, as this thing goes forward, I mean, I guess when you figured out finally in September that these documents were missing, you were shocked, stunned, and amazed. And did you get any information? Did they give you any justification for taking these documents?
No, like I said, when they called me to tell me that they had the documents, and I asked him why, he said that they wanted to make sure it was legitimate for me to have those documents.
Audrey, to obtain a search warrant like this, for, as you say, a potato launcher, you need to convince a judge that there is a crime that has taken place. What was on the warrant? I know it's 4:30 in the morning, so you can't call an attorney, wake him up out of bed, and come and look over the warrant while these people are raiding your home. I think that's why they did it in the middle of the night. But what did it say?
Well, it said that my husband had purchased a potato launcher online, and that in code, which we've never heard of this before, but they claim that in ATF code, a potato launcher means silencer. Now, I've never heard of that. We've never heard of that. Folks at the NRA have never heard of such a thing.
Wow.
But
in other words,
here's what's funny. We also have a golf ball launcher. And they asked me why I had that. I said because it's fun. It's a novelty item. It's fun. FYI, they did not confiscate the golf ball launcher.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good to know.
And did they confiscate any weapon?
Now that was a secondary part of the search warrant. I am a legally registered gun owner here in Maryland. My firearms were legally registered with the Maryland State Police. As a matter of fact, the registration also listed my occupation as Homeland Security reporter for the Washington Times when I purchased them. And that's another issue that we have a separate lawyer to take care of that issue. But and it's kind of a long story. But they did confiscate my guns.
Have they given them back?
No.
And are there any charges pending?
No. They haven't filed any charges.
All right. John in Falls Church is on the line. John, you're on WMAL. Do you have a question for Audrey Hudson?
I want to find out, yes, I'd like to find out, was this a FISA court warrant that was issued?
Was it a
You know
FISA
what?
court?
That is a good question. But the warrant they came in with was actually from a Maryland court. But I live in Anne Arundel County. They had gone to another part of Maryland to get a judge to sign off on the warrant.
So who is this incompetent judge who signed off on a warrant to search for a potato launcher?
You know, I don't have her name right in front of me.
All right, Joe in West River, real fast. You're on WMAL. You're on with Audrey Hudson.
Hello, Joe.
Good morning. Ms. Hudson, I think that when you're pursuing all of this, that when you find out who may, in fact, be responsible, I'd like you to make sure that those people go to jail, because this is an egregious violation of your constitutional rights. And it sounds like every time the Obama administration has something perhaps personally bad happen to them, these things happen.
Yeah, it isn't just a coincidence. It doesn't seem that way, Audrey Hudson.
No.
Audrey,
Well, it looks like I am the seventh reporter during this administration that they've gone after notes. Or sources, I guess we should say.
well, listen, keep us in the loop on this, Audrey,
Absolutely.
as things develop.
When you have new information, call us up. We'll get you right on.
I will, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks
All right.
for joining us. It's 8:20.